there, and welcome back to Build with the Boys. A bit of an unusual on this one. We are just talking about Valentine's Day. So there's no models, maybe. It's just about the history of Valentine's Day. About what it is, where it comes from, why it is, what it ain't. Because it's Valentine's month on the channel, it seemed fitting that we have a bit of a chat about it. If you haven't yet, please remember to like and subscribe. Your help is very much appreciated. So Valentine's Day. Now, you hear a lot of things when it comes to anything, when it comes to Easter, when it comes to Christmas, when it comes to anything. It's too commercialised. It's just the stores. It's too commercialised. It's all commercial. But that's actually true when it comes to Valentine's Day. I disagree that that's the case with Christmas. I disagree that's the case with Easter. And to a degree, I slightly disagree it's the case with Valentine's Day. And the reason why is because Christmas is about what you want to spend on it. Okay, so if you want to spend loads of money, you want to buy into the marketing, that's your choice. You don't have to do that. And you don't have to do that with Easter either. Easter at its heart is a religious ceremony. It's a religious holiday. You don't need to spend money. You don't need to buy chocolate eggs. You don't need to do any of that. Valentine's is exactly the same. Valentine's, however, the whole thing of it, it is a marketing thing. That is what it is. So as much as you will hear stories about where Valentine's Day came from, ultimately it is a marketing device. That's what it is. But does that make it a bad thing? I say no, and I will go into where Valentine's comes from. So you will hear lots of stories about the origins of Valentine's Day. St. Valentine's Day is a religious it's a religious day. It's Saint's Day. It's St. Valentine's Day. So there is theories that, well, this must link to the cards, the love, the declarations of love. All of this must link to St. Valentine's. It doesn't. None of it does. But you will hear false stories that St. Valentine's would give cards to women whose husbands were in the Crusades and they think they were still alive. No, not true. None of that's true. None of that's true. It's complete fallacy. There is nothing of love or Cupid or hearts or anything that links to any of the St. Valentines, because there were 3 St. Valentines. But nothing. There's nothing at all that links to St. Valentine's Day, links love or sending of cards to St. Valentine's. It's a complete fallacy. So if you hear anything along those lines, it's not true. It just isn't. Where it comes from is kind of a mess because no one really knows. There's a little bit comes from here and a little bit comes from there, but it's knowledge that's been lost over the years why this came to be. But we can glean parts from, okay, well, that started there and that started there, so it starts to make sense. There's a lot of theory of where it came from and a lot of educated theory which suggests that it's true. So St. Valentine's Day is the 14th of February, so it's just the saint's day. That's all it is. It was never intended to send cards or be the day of love. So where does it come from and why does it come from this? Well, the earliest iterations of Valentine's is there's a theory that comes from a pagan fertility festival. There's very little evidence of that. But it's quite a grim ceremony. It involved killing of animals and skinning them and then beating the woman of your choice with the carcass to make her more fertile. How romantic. I mean, honestly, there's nothing more romantic than beating a woman with a dead rabbit, is there? You know? So maybe that's where it came from. But I don't think so. The more plausible one is the theory being that swans and waterfowl typically start the mating season at the 14th of February. So that was where it was known. So it was the birds, the romance, the birds, the 14th of February was where it began, typically between the 13th and the 15th, 14th, that's where it landed on. So there became this thing of kind of amorous birds and whatnot, and that's the theory of where it came from. Now, poetry started to be written around about this time. In the 1600s, poems started to be written where Valentines was being mentioned, that love was in the air around Valentine's Day, and that's where the earliest kind of links of this come from. Everything else is market employed. But where do the cards come from? Well, very flowery poetry was being written around about this time, about all the love is in the air and the birds and the blah 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 blah, and it became the thing. So it became kind of around about this time of the year we'll exchange poems, and that's what happened. So poems of love started exchanging hands for around St. Valentine's Day. So that's where this came from. Now, there was no money involved in it at this point. This was just people exchanging poems. And there was also a thing called Vinegar Valentines, which I kind of love the idea of. A Vinegar Valentines was a reverse Valentines. It was something that you sent to somebody you didn't like. So if there was some suitor that was kind of getting amorous with you, a young lady or a young man would go, I don't think so, and write a kind of a poem of, I don't like you, and send it to them. And that's what happened. So for the longest time, that's all it was. It was an exchange of very flowery letters. And we've got an early example. Here's one here. So unless you're great at French, you'd be forgiven for not being able to read that. But that was written by Charles de Orleans, who in the 1500s was being held in the Tower of London. And he wrote a love poem around Valentine's to his girlfriend. Now, he was 21 when he went into the tower, and he wrote, to break it down, how angry it is at those that have estranged me from your love. I am already sick of love this Valentine's, my gentle Valentines. And he repeats, I am sick of love, my gentle Valentines. It was 21 years before they released him. So he was 42 by the time he got out. So he spent a long time away from his woman. And word of this story, this very romantic poem that he wrote her on Valentine's, circulated. And this is where it comes from. So some bright spark thought, you know what? Money in this. So that's where greetings cards came from. So believe it or not, the very first greetings card was a Valentine's card, and it was in America. So in America, in about 1700, Valentines from Britain and Europe had made it over to America, and Bright Spark thought, you know what, let's make a Valentine's card. And a lot of companies started doing this, and they typically cost $1 each. And that was like a bloody fortune in the 1800s. $1, my God, that's a lot of money. That would be like 100 quid for a Valentine's card, 150 quid for a Valentine's card. But one lady, who was the greetings card of America, started a production line in her home and managed to get that price down to 5 cents, cornered the market, and boom. They're still going strong today, believe it or not. And it's because she managed to reduce the cost of these cards, handmade with lace, down to 5 cents a card. Which means anybody could send one. They're very affordable, and it became very much the rage to, not everybody is flowery with the poetry. Now you've got a poem that's already written in a card, and off it goes, and you can tell the one that you love them in a much flowerier way than you could have been able to yourself, which is where the popularity of that came from. Everything else is marketing, literally everything else. So chocolates on Valentine's Day, where did that come from? Now again, there's this whole thing where, it was sweets for the sweet, and that's what, nope. Cadbury, that's where that came from. Cadbury invented a heart-shaped box using what was new technology at the time to change the shape of boxes from just square or rectangular. Heart-shaped box of chocolates, and it was a massive hit. Think about it. You've never seen a heart-shaped box before. Now there's one that's filled with chocolates, and it's Valentine's. My God, it's a marketing man's dream. So that's exactly what happens. That's where the popularity of chocolates came from. It wasn't. There's no tradition steeped in it at all. Cadbury just hit bam, right on the money. And that's where they came from. So Cadbury are responsible for chocolate at Christmas. Of course they are. They are Cadbury. And that's where that comes from. So all of these things do come from, sadly, marketing. One of the worst examples of this, and this breaks my heart, but I'm happy to tell you this in case you are one of the people in this position. Heed my words. Valentine's Day is the second busiest day for engagements. Believe it or not, Christmas Day is the #1 day for engagements. Valentine's Day is a very close second, but more people get engaged on Christmas Day than they do on Valentine's Day. But Valentine's Day is a very, very close second. Now, when it comes to engagement rings, I'll ask you a question. I'm sure you can answer it. How much should an engagement ring cost? Traditionally, how much should an engagement ring cost? Now, if you know what I'm talking about, you've answered one of the following. You've either said a month's salary, 2 months' salary, or 3 months' salary. So 3 months' wages, 2 months' wages, or 1 month's wages traditionally is the cost of an engagement ring. So where does that tradition come from? Well, it comes from marketing men. There is no tradition at all, none. They will have you believe that this was done where a man had to work for a month for the father, and that. Nope, that's not true. None of that is true. This comes from De Beers. De Beers up until the start of the 21st century, were the number one market share owner of diamonds in the world. So 85% of the world's diamonds were owned by De Beers. They owned all of the mines. So they had complete monopoly on diamonds. They got hit by the Great Depression, and people weren't buying diamonds. And diamonds were not as popular then as they are now. So diamond engagement rings weren't really a thing. There was only about 10% of engagement rings had diamonds in them. I mean, as an example of this, how late that happened, right up until the start of World War II, I think it was only 10 or 20% of engagement rings had diamonds in them. Now, De Beers would have liked that to have been a lot more, and they achieved that. And one of the ways they achieved it was that they came up with a marketing slogan, and it was, how do you make a month's salary last a lifetime? Buy an engagement ring. That's what they said. So there was no tradition steeped in it at all. They just had this diamond solitaire that they were trying to hawk, and they knew that it cost the average guy a month's salary to buy it. So this very clever marketing slogan came out of how to make a month's salary last a lifetime. And that's what they did. So there's no tradition in it. Just the people that own the diamonds have decided to create a tradition to make you spend 1 month's salary on an engagement ring. That's where that comes from. There is no other history in it at all. It's no different to Nike saying something along the lines of, well, if you love her, on January the 28th, you should buy her 6 pairs of Nikes. And somehow that becomes tradition, and we end up spending $500, $600, $700 on Nikes every January. That's how this happened. As nuts as it sounds, that's how this happened. It was just De Beers saying, give us a month's salary. That's what engagement ring's worth, a month's salary. Anything less than that, and you're breaking tradition. It's just not true. So that's where that comes from. So De Beers, for the longest time, did this, and it was 1 month's salary. They'd always have a diamond solitaire, and they would monitor the wages of people. So they would see what the average Joe was earning, and that's how much that solitaire cost. Because this is the other thing with De Beers. Because De Beers owned pretty much all the diamonds, De Beers dictated the price of what a diamond was worth. So diamonds, a long time ago, were worth a lot of money, and the reason why is because they're rare. So it really was that simple. The rarity of a diamond is why it costs so much money. The effort in finding a diamond, the effort of finding a clear diamond was rare. That was hard to do. However, times have moved on. So diamonds are not rare. The one thing diamonds certainly are not is rare. They're just not, right? You do get very clean, clear diamonds, but the average diamond is not rare. There's technology now where they just pull in these things out of the ground. It's not that hard. It really isn't that hard. They know exactly where they're mining. They know where they're getting them from. They've got all the technology to do it. So pulling out tons and tons and tons of diamonds a year is not difficult. So they shouldn't still be expensive. They shouldn't. There are much rarer gems than diamonds that aren't as expensive as diamonds. Well, why is that? Because De Beers own 85% of the market, and as a result of that, they dictate what they cost. So because they own them all, it's up to them to say how much a diamond's worth. A diamond is not worth its rarity. A diamond is worth what De Beers have decided they're going to sell it for, because there was no one else you could buy from. So that's why diamonds are expensive as they are. It's not because of their rarity. It's because De Beers own all the bloody diamonds. And they've said, okay, that one's 10 grand. What are you basing that on? Because that's what we want for it. That's it. So they're not rare. The price of a diamond is not based on the rarity. It's not based on it's a little bit based on the clarity, but it's purely marketing. De Beers, being De Beers, decided that a month's salary wasn't quite enough. And in the 80s, they launched this promotion. So in one of the laziest market employees of all time, De Beers ran that in the 80s. We thought, you know what? We've sold them the month's salary ring for long enough. How did Mrs. Smith know what the future would look like with 2 months' salary? That's what they did. So they just said, okay, well, now it's 2 months. Now you want to engage your rings 2 months. If you don't buy you don't spend 2 months' salary, you're a cheapskate. You believe this? This all happened. So that was the campaign that ran for years. Eventually they moved the pouting chick, and it was just a picture of the solitaire of 2 months' salary. 2 months. That was it. And they say it in a way where it sounds like it's a tradition. It is not. And they did that, and they did that right up until around about 1995. Then guess what they did in 1995? 3 months' salary to show you love her. So this is exactly what happened, and this has been De Beers' kind of whole business model. So if you are a young man out there and you are wanting to propose to the woman you love this Valentine's, or maybe you're planning on this Valentine's, you're with someone you love and you realise they're the person you want to engage. Do not get yourself in debt, because De Beers have dictated how much an engagement ring costs. If she loves you, it doesn't matter what you propose to her with. It really doesn't. Crackers are fun, but don't go, too cheap with the ring that comes from them. But what I'm saying is, do not feel under any pressure at all to blow 3 months' wages on an engagement ring because the marketing people of De Beers have told you have to. That's nuts. There's no tradition in that at all. None. That's mental. And anybody that would insist on you spending 3 months' salary on an engagement ring probably ain't worth your time. Probably ain't worth your time. She loves you, don't matter what you give her. And that's what we're here to talk about, love. So there are obviously going to be cynics out there that would say when it comes to Valentine's Day, I don't need a day to tell my wife I love her. No, you don't. You don't need a day to tell your wife you love her. But did you tell her yesterday? Did you? Because if you didn't, maybe you do need a day to tell your wife that you love her. Maybe you do need that little kick up the ass to remind her, tell her she's special. Buy her some flowers, get her some chocolates. And ladies, this is not exclusive to you. This is not Ladies' Day. It is not. But again, the marketing people have realised there's more money in flowers and chocolates, which are traditionally female gifts, than there are in, men's stuff. So it's been marketed very much as Women's Day, where men are expected to buy women gifts. That's not the case. It's a Valentine's Day. It doesn't matter male, female, or whatever gender you choose to identify as. There's nothing stopping you from getting somebody a Valentine's. And again, you don't have to do this, and I appreciate this. Me and my wife don't do that. We don't need it. Okay, that's fine. You don't need it. But that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. Who doesn't like receiving a Valentine's card? Who doesn't? I love it. You get a Valentine's card. I don't know if my wife's going to get me a Valentine's card, but if she does, it'll make me smile. It's just a nice thing. It's a cute thing. And where's the harm in it? Nothing. And long live love. And if you need a day to do it, do it. And I mean, I'm very smiley at the moment because today my eldest son Oscar sent his first Valentine's card, and he did it like a trooper. So he decked himself out like the milk tray man because he was terrified about being seen. So he very covertly snuck to this house and put it through the letterbox and ran away because, as I keep telling him, faint heart never won fair maiden. And it's took a lot for him to do this. But he's done it. And he did it anonymously, which is the other thing about Valentine's Day, which has somewhat been lost. Valentine's Day traditionally wasn't for the couples. It wasn't for the married couple. It wasn't for the long-term couple. It was a day to tell the person that you've worshipped from afar, I kind of like you. And just it was like an amnesty day where you could go, you know what? I like you. And you could send them a card. And cards traditionally had a question mark. You didn't know. They were sent anonymously. Now, with the cynical way people think, it's like, that's a bit stalkery. And it's like, not really. It's just telling someone I like you, I don't know why, but whatever it is about you that there is, I kind of like, and I'd like to get to know you a little bit more. That's what it used to be, but it's not anymore because, again, there's money. There's money in those couples, man. Let's milk it for everything we can. But as cynical as it is when it comes to the marketing side of it, ultimately it's just a day to tell someone you love that you love them. You are the person I love and I'm thinking of you today. I've got your card. I've got you some flowers. You don't have to spend anything. You could write the one you love a poem. You could. And if you're thinking, well, I can't write poetry, Google is your friend. So you could do these things. It doesn't have to cost anything. You could, if your wife is the one that always cooks for you, you could take her out to dinner tomorrow night, couldn't you? Or you could cook for her. You could do something nice for her, couldn't you? And vice versa, ladies. As I said, this isn't a one-way traffic. You could do something nice for your husband tomorrow. You could, if you make your husband sandwiches, which again I know a lot of women do. If you do, you could pop a little note in his sandwiches, couldn't you? You could. And fellas, you could do the same thing. There's nothing stopping you from sending a sweet text or something like that. It hasn't cost you any money at all. It's just a beautiful day to tell someone you love, I love you. And what's wrong with that? Nothing at all. Anyway, that's a little bit of the history of Valentine's Day, and that's all it is from me. Wherever you are, have a fantastic one tomorrow. And fellas, if you're thinking, I don't send Valentine's, you still got time to go out and get one. Come on. It's like, just tell the lady you love her. Tell the lady you love her, and just do it on Valentine's Day. So she doesn't have to go to work tomorrow and say, yeah, no, I got nothing. He never gets me anything. Do something different this year, That's all from me. In a world where you can be anything at all, just be nice. And tomorrow, if you have it in your power to make someone smile or tell someone you love them, then you do it. Please remember to like and subscribe. You can contact us at buildingtheboys@outlook.com, and we will catch you very soon for more of the same, more of the building and whatnot. This was just a beautiful distraction for Valentine's Day. I will catch you on the next one.